Right. Well, thank you. Thank you. And hello to everybody. I want to thank Stephen and Evan for inviting me to give talk about my experiences. It is a very personal one, but at the same time, I have been connecting to the Star People for 39 years now. And so I'd like to share some of that experience because not everybody can accept the existence of Star People, let alone the Ancestry, because we are all Star People, believe it or not. However, I'd like to begin at the beginning, I think. And so I have someone, we're recording this and I'm very grateful for this. And I also will give the opportunity at the end of the conference for people to ask questions if they want to. I do speak to one particular Star person called Alcheringa, who is well known to the Indigenous Australian people, who call him an ancient creator ancestor. And I've come to understand now that all the dots have come together, I've come to understand he is my ancestor as well. Although, well, it doesn't matter, but the thing is, we are all one, so it doesn't really matter as to what color skin we have, because at another time I did have and joined the first people as the first tribe that existed in a raised consciousness and the blessing from the source of all creation, which is love and compassion. And also ceremony and knowledge of the Sky People and how they can help with introducing information. It doesn't come easily because they don't have voice boxes and to communicate the same way as we do as humans. They communicate with a consciousness mind to mind. And I notice that there's a lot of scholars now starting to open up and realize that really everything is consciousness. And so, if I may, I'm looking now at the sacred Uluru and the Red Heart of Australia, which we have been given quite a lot of information about. And you can see I've made notes, which hopefully you can see for yourself. I will just repeat it. It says it's, we're reminding us of a Cosmic Consciousness Conference at Uluru, 20th, 21st and 22nd of December, which Steve and Evan will be speaking at, and I will too, hopefully. We don't know how things are going now with COVID-19, but for the moment, December 21st, there will be already speakers that have talked about a very important date from the Indigenous tribal elders that say that it is, shall we say, not exactly the end of time, it's the end of days, but it being really opening up for all the past to be resolved, to let it go and move forward with new understanding. And so, and I, as a matter of fact, my birthday is just 4 days before the 21st of December, and I will be at Uluru, and it'll be my 88th birthday, which is quite an age. So I do have ideas about where I'm going and certainly where I've come from. And it is possible for all people to come to understand that we don't just appear on this planet. We actually are born into this planet. We have a life and then we finally leave. It has an end, but it's only the end of the earth body that goes back to the soil, which has the same chemistry. But we have a light body, and that is the thing. This is what makes us human. And so rather than go on there, I think I've covered. So could I have the next slide, please? This is just an example, what they were saying, that Uluru I believe a lot of, or some of the tribal elders have said it came from the stars, and certainly that is what I have been given to understand from Alcheringa, who, as I have said, is the excuse me, indigenous, ancient indigenous creator, been around helping and teaching for a long, long time. And he says, it tells us that he resides at Uluru, and that world of light, which we can't readily see with our earth eyes, but we can see with our inside eyes. And I think you're understanding that. It's the same eyes that happen when we dream. This is an iceberg, of course, but what it's showing is that we have been advised that Uluru came, when it came from the stars, it actually came and landed in the Alcheringa Sea, which existed on our land. We call Australia now. It could be called Gondwana land, but it actually has a depth much more than what it appears to on the surface of our earth at this time. When it went into the Alcheringa Sea, it was brought to destroy the dinosaurs. That's another story, which I will tell a little later. But it's also came as a fiery ball, and it wasn't just this Uluru. There are other parts of it that have landed elsewhere around the world. The whole idea was to destroy the dinosaurs, as I have said, and there is intelligence, star people, we could call a hierarchy, that was behind this happening, because at the time the dinosaurs were destroying the atmosphere. So we talk more about that again later. When it came in, it actually was so hot, it actually dissolved the water, which was said to be a shallow sea, and it became mud. It did dry out later for another reason. But if I could just move on to the next, there we go. So this is John and I, and we have come from the future. We've been showing this now, and it's a bit hard to get your head around, really. And I will explain that more, but we are two soulmates that have agreed to work together, support each other. And what we have come to understand that is everything is happening at once. And we're not the only ones saying that these days. There are other scholars saying these things, and we live in a hologram. Quantum physicists will explain it. It's just a matter of consciousness and where you focus. That's the big thing. And when you think about it, like I do work with people around the world on Skype, and some people, for instance, in the United States, they'd be, say, 17 hours behind me, because I'm in Australia. And but at the same time, and even the day before, that would take us. But when we're talking, we are talking and looking at each other. Our focus is organized by equipment, of course, but it is possible to do it with the mind. So, and when you think about the mind, it is not just the brain. We have a consciousness that exists eternally, and that is part of our light being, our star self. Can I have the next slide, please? This is Alcheringa, and it was only just last January that he actually did this for a bit of a joke, I think. But you can see there's an image of me, and I was asked for a bio, and I was trying to work at it, went to bed, and the next morning when I woke up, there it was, me that had become quite Aboriginal looking, dark skin with a beard, if you can see that, and a light being inside. And I just started laughing when I saw it. I believe technically it can be done by anyone. I don't know about that. I haven't a clue how to do that. That's the very reason why this speak or talk is happening as a pre-recording. So I didn't do this at all, but Alcheringa and the Star people, they're playing jokes all the time. It's been great fun, actually, and wonderful working with them. He is actually the other half of Andromeda Val, who has shown herself to me beside my bed about 2 or 3 years ago. I woke and she was in a hologram of light, and she stood about 7 feet tall, and she looked very human. And I've come to know that she is part of myself, and she is in the future. It was wonderful meeting her. So 6,000 years ahead takes quite a distance ahead, but as I said, we are eternal when we understand truly who we are, that Alcheringa and Andromeda Val are the same. We are all androgynous. So he actually began his work with the Indigenous people nearly a million years ago. Now that might sound quite a challenge, but when you think about it, there's been many skeletons or skulls found on this earth and dated. And dating, of course, can be very confronting and also debatable because the earth has moved into different dimensions. That's different layers of consciousness. And it has a frequency and a vibration. And as, can I say, Nikola Tesla tried to talk about and share with people. Wasn't ready for it then, I think, but now, something like 75 years later, his work is starting to be considered and taken, and realizing, of course, that he was right. There is free energy, and it gets stronger the more further it moves away. So that's another thing, again, that we're all coming to understand. And so I will go on about the million years ago. I think we will just say it was an ancient time and a long time ago that the first humans were created, and they are the Indigenous Australian people. Now, if I can just quickly explain that, it was an animal type body. There was a mixture of DNA from all sorts of sources, and but when the raising from the animal man to the human light man, or blessed with that and a soul, they became the human, the light man. So I can talk about more there. I'd just like to go on the next screenshot, which is about communion with Whitley Strieber. Now this is when I actually had a near-death experience in the 1960s, and I was actually aware of flatlining, knowing I was dead, but I was out of the body, flying around, and actually I was traveling all around the world. It was quite an experience, really. And I knew and just understood that there was another consciousness within us. And at the same time, when I did come back, I didn't stay. I did actually worry about leaving little children. So I asked God, for want of a better word, I asked the source of all creation, of love and compassion, and asked if I could please stay, because I was worried about my little boys. And so a voice, a very dignified voice, said, "You can stay." And so then suddenly I was back in hospital again. And then it was 7 years later, my world just completely changed. And so without making a long story about that, that does happen to quite a few of us actually, who have come in with an exchange of souls, because the clairvoyant was explaining to me why my life had changed so much and why I felt so different. I was still connected to my children and my parents, because the earth body gave birth to that. But I just had a problem sorting things out, actually. So this book, Communion, and Whitley Strieber came to Australia, and he was talking about his experience with the encounters with unknown. Well, this is exactly what happened to me. I had a clairvoyant say to me, "Oh my God, you're surrounded by aliens." And of course, I didn't really understand that until I saw this book. And I thought, that's what she's talking about. But I felt terrified, actually. And so Whitley Strieber had actually come to Australia and was talking. And the fellow that, Harry Miller, that actually promoted him, had 1 meter square posters of this image of an ET, put on all the garbage bins around the CBD of Sydney, so that everywhere I was walking, I seemed to be looking at this photo, this image, and I was frightened. I thought, why the heck am I so frightened? It was ridiculous. So we can go to the next slide, if we can. Thank you. And this is another book that Whitley Strieber wrote about after he had come to terms with what was all about. And after reading his book, I actually saw the book in a bookshop, and I forced myself to buy it and read it, and discovered that I was experiencing very similar things to him. But the only reason we were frightened was because it was so strange. The images were so strange. And I had a knowing that I must go to a hypnotherapist and see what it's all about, the same as he did. Well, I found myself, when he led me into the altered state of consciousness, I wasn't deep hypnosis. I was able to pull myself out if I wanted to, so that wasn't frightening. But I saw myself on a table as if I was in a theatre of a hospital with a huge light above me. And then I could see all these little beings all around the table. And I thought, I started to really feel afraid. But then I saw another one that was dressed in a robe, and it seemed to me somehow to quieten me and help me not to be afraid. And then I realized that another layer of consciousness, I had agreed to come for this to happen, and that there was nothing to be afraid of at all. It was just a different world, different races, different people. And I've come to understand now, of course, that our universe is very full of many, many, many races. It's just that we can't see them readily with our physical earth eyes, but they exist. They can see us better and easier than we can see them, but they do show themselves. So if I can see the next slide, after that, Whitley Strieber, of course, started to realize the same thing as that I had also. And so there was a very similar thing, and there was a lot of reports of people being abducted. Some people were very afraid, but if they come to know that they'd agreed at another point in before they had come to Earth, then with a soul, they would have agreed to all this taking place. Because there was a new race being created from the genes that were tasted for tests that were really helping us to try and find answers to various illnesses or diseases. And also some of the embryos were taken as well. And I was one that lost, shall we say, a child, and only a little embryo, miscarriage if you like. And then now I find it was rescued actually, and that was where Andromeda Val came from. So I am her ancestor. Anyway, this one now is a book I was asked to write. Again, the property we're living on was called Alcheringa. I might say when you're working consciously with upstairs with the star people, they play all sorts of jokes. You might experience a coincidence, but don't brush it off too quickly because it's a coordinated incident, trying to attract your attention. Again, remember I said they don't speak the same way as we do. So they try to capture our attention in a different way. And there's signs given and certainly feelings. You think, oh, that's odd. It captures your attention and you think, I should take more notice of this. Well, with the property, we actually bought and lived there, and we had trouble finding a name for it. It was out at Alcheringa, at Canyonle in New South Wales, which is the southern highlands of Australia, just not far from the highway called M31. And as it turned out, the hierarchy that they've introduced me to, this is just in more later times, now that, as I say, all the dots are starting to come together, that M31 is also connected to the galaxy Andromeda, and that is where Andromeda Val comes from, and Alcheringa actually, But this was a different part of a different life that Alcheringa was helping with the Aboriginal people, to help them at all times. So this book actually was a diary, because what happened is I had a stone wrapped in paper bark and tied with string and canvas. And I just knew intuitively, remember, intuition is our inside teaching. So we need to understand where that comes from. And so intuitively, I did know I wasn't to open it, that it was men's business. So I didn't open it. But at the same time, when I sat with it on my lap, it spoke to me. So it's ridiculous to think that a stone could speak to you, but it did. And also the Aboriginal people believe it comes from the stars. They're called the Alcheringa stones, or Chiringa stones. And so I wrote every day and was quite excited. I had no idea what was going to happen the next day. And it was like going to a movie in a way, because I was given all this information. And the book does exist now. It's incorporated with the Star Lady book, which has been published. And so I've got notes here. I think that covers it really, except that when it was published, I had experience walking into a bookshop and this book jumped off the shelf behind me. I say it jumped off because there was no one there to push it or pull it off or make it fall, but it just fell by itself onto the ground, and it was all carpet. It was a new shop, and it shouldn't have made so much noise. It really did make a lot of noise. So I picked it up and I thought, I feel as if I'm supposed to meet this being who happened to be Sri Sathya Sai Baba, who was an avatar that lived in India, in Puttaparthi, India. And I felt that I needed to go to see him at some stage. So I felt him pulling me in some way. So this is the thing about feelings, more than anything else, is listen to your own feelings, because there's messages there. We need to deal with these emotions, particularly if they're troubled. We need to sort them out and heal them. So with this book, I had it published, and I did go to India, and I felt that there was a need for it to be blessed if possible. Well, at the ashram, there's thousands of people there every day. It's quite extraordinary, or there was. And I was called for an interview on my own, a woman, Indian, in India, alone, to be called for an interview. It's quite extraordinary, really. So I was predestined to have a contact with an avatar and be told and understood. He has actually given me a very special ring. It's a green diamond ring, and that comes from the stars too, because when Alcheringa, when Sai Baba put it on my finger, I didn't really know much about him at the time, but I saw long white fingers moving very quickly, and it was creating the diamonds. So it came from the stars, the same way the star people made diamonds, the same way as humans can make industrial diamonds. So that was the insight I was given. And Sai Baba himself actually said, when you look in that ring, I will be there. So in other words, he has led me and placed me in all sorts of situations that have been quite amazing at times. And at the same time, he has held the door from the soul consciousness. It's like an opening then leads me to my oversoul and many other beings that come from a similar place that were teaching me and bringing me knowledge. I won't say that I know everything, far from it. They soon showed us that there's so much knowledge they can give one person, and so another, and then another, and another. And I noticed this is a time when more and more people are sharing their knowledge, and it's like a tapestry all coming together with this wonderful view of the big picture, and all the pieces coming together. So that is quite a wondrous thing. So can we have the next slide, please? These are images that were given to other, mediums, psychic ladies or men, that were given these images all at the same time. So they're all brought together. We sometimes wonder how everybody meets You know, people meet each other and they think, oh, I know, and I've known this person, but you've never met them in this life. And of course, you've met them in other lives or as star people. It's very familiar. You feel very comfortable. Sometimes you don't feel so comfortable, so you just give them a miss. Anyway, these were the signs that were given to us, and we felt we had to paint them and take them to Uluru to sing them into the earth at Uluru. We wrote letters to the tribal elders, and we didn't receive any response, but we thought we had permission. Can I have the next screen, please? Next slide. And here we are painting them all. This is where we lived at Canyonle. And we were told by Alcheringa, who introduced himself, by the way, from me holding that stone. He worked through two other mediums, but he did introduce me, and he did ask if he could borrow my voice box and be able to speak through me to give messages from the star people. And so we've been working along like that for quite a number of years now. As I said, 39 years ago it started. So these are symbols being painted. Can I have the next screen, please, dear? And then we had this visitation from the sky. It was quite extraordinary. I wish there was a movie taken, but somebody lent it to someone, because you never see it again when it's to do with extraterrestrials in sight in starships on the sky. So we haven't got it. It seems to have disappeared, but we've got the stills, and it's not very clear there, but there is a cloud above these people looking a different direction, because there was all this movement was very, very different. It's a bit hard to describe it really, but this cloud had a tail and it was moving towards the tree, if you like, or above the tree, but all the other clouds were moving the other way. So there was something going on there. And we really believed that, if we can have the next slide, please, dear. Yes, there, it's a better photo there. You can see the dark, we believe, is the starship inside a cloud, which they say they do appear in a cloud, so that people don't get upset or frightened or worried or what is going on. But they're there. They're all over the place. They're coming and visiting us all the time. I'm sorry about the little word text. I can't get rid of that. Can I have the next screen, please? The next image. The next image, please. Thank you. And then, as the day wore on a little bit more, and we were all absolutely just astounded at what was going on in the sky, but you can see there was a black line that actually looked like a serpent in the sky. But in actual fact, what it was little starships, little ones, off the big one, and they'd formed a line. So that was very appropriate, because it was representing the serpent that the Aboriginal people all relate to, the rainbow serpent. And then as it started to disperse, you can see the movement that's showing something's moving, and then you could see these black dots in the sky. Well, you don't get black dots in the sky, and they were the little ships off the big one that was just the other side of the tree. So can we have the next image, please? This is separate, but a friend sent this one, and you can see on the left there's a rainbow, looks almost like a serpent climbing up. And I thought it was appropriate to show, because we all, when we went at that time, it was in 1994, and we were all introduced to the rainbow serpent energy. We were initiated. Up until then, there was a bit of shyness, but if we tried to talk to the Indigenous people, which is very understandable. But after we'd been initiated, nothing was said, and yet they were all talking to us. It was quite extraordinary. They just recognized the energy somehow very easily. Now have the next screen, please. These are images that were found on caves by, and I just get this right, Lieutenant Gray, back in 1838, 1839, at the Kimberleys. And I think people may have seen this. Strangely enough, this orange one looks very like Sai Baba. But the head and everything, it's very alien looking. very extraterrestrial. And they were there. And John is actually related to this Lieutenant Grey, which I thought I'd just throw in for interest. We're both here doing the similar work. We're on a mission. So I have the next screen, please. And this is Sai Baba I was speaking of, the avatar of the age. And he actually blessed, it was something about it. He was talking about healing. And I worried that I was doing healing, which comes through the hands. And I thought I might have been doing something wrong. But I had a photo, and he blessed it personally and put a light in the hand, more or less to say, no, it's fine. You are doing the right thing. So that was nice. And so can I have the next screen, please? This is the green ring I was telling you about. It came from the stars. I know it, even though Sai Baba had manifested it from nowhere and placed it on my hand. I did put it on my hand, and I was speaking to him telepathically the whole time. And he said, telepathically, I said rather to him that, oh, that's my marriage finger. And he looked at me and smiled and then took it off and put it on the other hand. It's very unusual for him to touch people, if you like, because he's such a strong light. And it is possible if the light was too strong, we'd probably burn. Wouldn't be good. Anyway, I've put it beside a being of light, which is our light body. That's what we all have, and that's what we all are. And we need to make that strong so that we can cope with anything on this planet. This planet has a role to play, and it's a very difficult one. And I'm sure everyone will agree with that. But we're aspects of our God being, or our, what would you say? He used to say, Sai Baba used to say, beloved aspects of God, which is quite wonderful, really, except the God's not always accepted to some people. So we could say the source of all creation. And that's through the suns. Apparently there's a number of suns that are coming into alignment. There's new energy coming onto Earth right now, and there has been for quite some time. And in doing so, it's raising the energy, the frequency of our atmosphere and the Earth itself. And so we're getting closer to this December the 21st, which has been held in the tribal people's prophecies, which they were secret for a while, but they want to share it now. So can I have the next image, please? This is just a little one that I'd like to mention. Jerry Bostock, Jerry was a friend of ours. He was an Aboriginal man, a healer, that actually, he actually came to the house when we had we just had the book published by Holding the Sacred Stone. And he was quite stern at first because he said, well, it's men's business. And I was shaking I was worried because I didn't want to upset any of the Indigenous people at all. But I knew I had a mission. So I said to him, well, I have a being, a male, that speaks through me. He's borrowed my voice box and he talks through me, and he says it's from the stars, but he also says he's an Indigenous ancestor. And he was asked what the name was, and I said, Alcheringa. No, he said, that's all right again, and started laughing. So our friendship grew, and we were very close to him. He told us a lot about the Indigenous ways. It was quite wonderful, actually, the way he embraced us. This particular video, he is on it, being interviewed, if anyone was interested. We were told by Graham Archer and his son that they would gladly publish one for anybody that's interested. They can find more details on my website, which is just simply valeriebarrow.com. And so I'm just mentioning that because our beloved Jerry, we miss him very much. He is possible to still contact and be in communication with, by the way. So can I have the next image, please? This is the book that came, as I said, we met Jerry. He came, gave me a bit of a hard time, and then when he realized where I was coming from, he said he had another friend in the Aboriginal people that had actually started channeling Alcheringa also. And so that actually gave me some credibility, I think, but in his eyes anyway. And he asked, or we talked about the Canyonle site. There were Egyptian hieroglyphs there, supposedly, that were not drawn, but cut into the stone walls. Canyonle's near Gosford, that's just north of Sydney in New South Wales. And he said, oh, I know it well. Would you like me to take you? So we said, yes, that would be lovely. So it seemed quite an adventure to go up. A few others heard about us going. So it was about 6 or 7 people that went. They're all mediums, by the way. When I say that, I mean they were open to this other consciousness that exists within all of us. Everybody has the ability to tap into that. And so this book has been republished and been read. It was published first. Well, it started coming together when I was holding the Alcheringa stone, but that led us on to meeting Jerry because he was attracted by the name Alcheringa with our property, and then the book. And he actually took us to Canyonle, and we were all looking at these Egyptian, what seemed like Egyptian glyphs. And yes, they do. That is another story that's there. Jerry had asked if Alcheringa would speak to us if we were there, and I said, yes, I'm sure he would. He has already said to me I would meet an Aboriginal healer and there would be communication, so yes, that was fine. So we actually, when we were at the site and going through the hallway where it was covered at some time, a long time ago, it hasn't been taken as accepted. It's considered a hoax. But everyone there experienced a feeling about an energy there that existed. There was something much, much behind it, more behind it than what was just being brushed off as a hoax, far from it. And there are other sites now that have been discovered as well. And it was at that time that I also met Stephen and Evan Strong. And they've been doing a lot of work from a scientific point of view. And so we were all gathering and there were more and more people coming. But before I just go on for that, I want to say that that day that Jerry took us there, everybody had gone home. We had stayed for a little bit. And Jerry said, if you look out there, if you hold the hands up and look out over at the water towards Lion Island, he said, I think that is where a ship went, an ET ship, meaning a sky people's ship, went into the sea. Well, I put my hands out and they were just standing very close to me. He and another lady who in a past life was connected to him also, and me. And we just taken over. It was quite an extraordinary experience to have 3 people taken over with this past life memory all at the same time. And we remembered being star people. And we were grounded on Earth and couldn't get away because the ship that we'd come in was a huge mothership, beautiful state of the art, a long, long time ago, had 50,000 people on board. But this all came out gradually later. What we experienced was being stranded and being so upset and in a state of shock about what had happened and why it had happened. But even that came out later too, because the more people heard about us remembering being star people, this is back in 1995, these people just looking at the glyphs on a photo, not necessarily going to the site, it would spark a spontaneous memory in them. And they remembered being star people. Valerie, and they were talking
cutting now
spontaneously about.
Valerie, we're just going to
yes.
cut out. Yeah. So we'll just pause this for the time being. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to stop it now. And I'm just trying to